been recent that I've even come to reality of death row. I'm here. It's enough to keep me awake at night. It's enough to wake me up out of complete dead sleep. You know, sound sleep. I wake up thinking about the process. Who am I gonna hear, you know? Do I hear voices? Will I be able to look down and see myself laying on this table, strapped to this table? Who will be at my funeral? I think about it a lot.
Usually when I'm trying not to worry about something that I'm worrying about, you know, I'll toss and turn and have about 5 or 6 nightmares in the night, you know, and sometimes I just get up and sit on the side of the bed or whatever, you know, depending on how rough they are, you know. I hope there's an afterlife, you know, and that I go to a better place than I've found in this life, you know.
I've had the execution nightmares, you know, where they haul you in, strap you down on a gurney and roll you into the execution chamber, and I've had them to where the victim that was murdered in this case is standing there, and they're putting all the wires in me, and then he turns into a demon or something, and he's going to be the one to execute me, and he's telling me he's sorry, you know. Wake up out of, you know, from dead sleep, you know, cold sweat, you know, it's pretty wild stuff.
The United States Supreme Court has paved the way for a significant increase in the number of executions, and recently a record number has occurred. What is the nature of the legal appeal process that leads to either an acquittal, stay, or execution? And what lives are affected by an act of execution? Death row inmates, prison staff, victim and inmate family members, along with prosecuting and defense attorneys within the state of Missouri were interviewed in order to explore the mind, the heart, and the soul of an execution.
The thought of being executed is almost always just below the surface. Sometimes it could be a butterfly or a bird. Last week, a dove landed out there in the rec yard, you know, and the dove, of course, is a symbol of peace. Immediately, the thought comes to my mind that it doesn't mean anything to me, that whatever I am or whatever else I might be, I'm dead.
I'm worried, I guess the sense that anybody would be worried. But I got a certain amount of peace with practicing Islam. I know I made my peace. So I'm not as worried, I'll say, as I was 3 or 4 years ago.
It's just something that I can't foresee. I just have to wait, and if that happens, then deal with it. It's basically what I try to do day by day, is deal with it the best I can. More so now, before, I try to stay in my own world, you know, and get away from it. And I still do to a certain degree. But yeah, my fears are definitely there. Not only for myself, but everybody else. You know, when they take and pull a man off and cuff him up and move him to what's known as the holdover cell, or we call it execution cell, you know, it's just basically a cage designed, you know, for you to be in until they make preparation.
What is it like to await an execution? Lloyd Schlup has been there.
Several months before, March of this year, I knew it was coming soon. Even my lawyers didn't think it was. They thought, you know, hey, we got a long time. And was telling my family and all. I felt it. I knew my appeal got turned down, and I still had another appeal to go, but it didn't. The opinions didn't sound right. Something was going on there with the state's attorneys, and I was telling the guys out in the population, man, they're gonna get me. Well, they come and got me first thing on Monday morning. It was 7:30, 8 o'clock, and it hit me pretty hard. And it was just a CO and I think a lieutenant told me I was going to the holding cell, execution holding cell, and they escorted me over there because some of the people where I was at on that walk, I've known for several years. So when I come out, I didn't think I'd be coming back. But I said, goodbye to some of the guys on the walk, and they said, well, I'll see you when you get back. And it was this type of thing back and forth, and I just said, well, let's hope. But as I was walking over there, it was just, this is the real thing here. It's come down to this, and here I go. One of the first things I did is ask for the phone to make a phone call, and of course, first person I called was my attorney, and he was as shocked as I was, but he was ready, to do what needed to be done. And it was just a waiting game from then on out. Of course, my nerves at that time, that's when my nerves really hit me, that this was real and I was here, But it was pretty nerve-wracking when they started turning down my innocence claims. It was just driving my mother. She was just a wreck.
And they put us in that room with him. And my heart was just breaking. And I just wanted to die myself. If I could, I would. If it would help him, I would. And I held him, and we didn't say anything. We just held each other and hugged each other tighter and tighter and tighter.
And he tries to be so strong. You try to be strong for his sake. And he's trying to be strong for your sake. But I don't think anyone could ever tell you how they feel sitting in a room waiting. Someone else's death, your brother's death. It's impossible.
Halfway through the second day, I got a stay. One of the federal judges gave us a stay of execution. And they come, and everybody was just jubilant, Of course, you get a stay, everybody's excited about that. And I talked to my lawyer on the phone, and he said, no problem, we're good to go now. And, was telling me all these different things we was going to do and whatnot. So I said, fine. So I packed up my stuff, and they escorted me back over to my cell, and I was in the cell. I didn't even unpack. I was so mentally exhausted, I just laid down on the bare mattress. Didn't have no sheets on it. I just laid down on it. And I stayed there, and I was going to go to sleep. I was going to sleep probably 10, 15 hours. And it was like 35 minutes later, they come back. Here come about 6 guards. When I seen them, I knew something was up. They said, don't unpack, the execution's back on. And my heart just sunk right there. And I heard a couple guys down the walk, said, oh boy. And so they left, and they said they'd be back in, real short, to pick me back up. And I'm sitting on the mattress, and I'm thinking in my mind, how's Mom going to take this?
And I was just panic-stricken because we kept getting the message back. They are going to execute him. There was a certain person that said, it's going to happen.
And it was just, they was just in shock. And it was real hard after that to really convince anybody that I wasn't worried or that everything was all right, because everybody was a little worried now. But I still wasn't talking about it or, too much or, letting on about it. But deep inside, I was just thinking, this is the last time I'll be with my family.
And I keep thinking back to the night I sat there in that hall, me and the kids. And I mean, you're sitting there looking right at this room. I had no idea what it was. Just a room. I mean, we were in a hospital. It was just a room. Then when he told me, I thought, that's why all the witnesses. That's why they have all the witnesses. That's where you stand and watch.
And then they decided, the judges, who was the bank of judges who was deciding the cases, they said they was gonna quit at 6 o'clock that evening and go home. So we knew nothing was gonna be decided that night. And I talked to my attorney again, and he said it probably won't be, the earliest we'll know anything will be mid-afternoon tomorrow. The execution was for 12:01, 12 a.m. So we just had to sweat it out all that night and through the next day. And the next morning, I'm sitting there thinking before I could get a hold of anybody, because I know today they're gonna bring my last meal and all this legal stuff I got to go through, and I know this is coming. And I know I'm not gonna know anything one way or another until late afternoon. And my family's all gonna be coming in, and I'm about to the point where I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to make it through this day. It's getting pretty hard. I had ordered some movies for the VCR that I hadn't seen, that I had missed, and the Terminator 2. I didn't get to see her. The Dances with Wolves, and I wanted to see those. I didn't really care too much for the Terminator movie, but the Dances with Wolves, I liked that, and I watched it. It was a long movie. It was like a 3-hour movie or something, but it was. I had a untraditional last meal. And I guess that was just a country boy coming out of me. Most people order, I don't know, hamburgers or steaks, but I wanted catfish and some deer, venison meat, and that's what I had. The superintendent had come down and told me I had to stay for 10 days. That my execution would be for March 23rd instead of March the 12th. It was a 10-day period there. And so there would be a lot of fighting back and forth, and appeals would really get strong in this 10-day period. And usually when you get an appeal like that, where they only give you a certain amount of days after your stay, you're gonna die after that 10 days, because you will totally have gone through your appeals twice. You will have went through every possible appeal. So the 10-day thing, my family was, hey, all right, but them not knowing that, hey, we're already going through, this is the second time through this. And 10 days means, in 10 days, if I don't get relief from the courts, I'm definitely going to be executed, no doubts about it. But anyway, they come in later that evening, and we visited and everything, and they left. Just a couple days later, I received an indefinite stay. And as a matter of fact, the judge appointed a brand new judge. And it seemed like it just took off from there. I mean, where it's at now is, it's probably in the best hands that it's been in all along, because they want to look at it. The judges where my case is at now, they say, well, I want to see what's going on. I want to see all this for myself. So this has been since March. They've been going over my case. And, I just hope it works out.
Death row inmates used to make little jokes about the situation to themselves. I guess, some people say you got to, the laugh to keep from crying. I don't know. I don't joke about this situation.
I mean, I don't want to die. And I guess we all like to, say that we're the macho type and, we can handle it, but no one really knows.
A couple of dudes that I had to correct that on death row about this situation that had approached me and in the manner, well, it's a joke, I know, but it's not comical, it's not funny to me. About, well, Larry, what you gonna do when your time comes? My time ain't gonna come. I don't know. I don't play that.
I couldn't sit there and watch them do that to somebody any more than I could sit there and watch a criminal slowly kill somebody in a bank just to make the point. I couldn't watch it. Just the terror. You have to think. The hostages in the bank, how they would feel, the terror, watching them do that. Well, that's the situation I am in here. Every time they execute somebody, They do it real slow and they let you know, that they can get you. And they're nice to you. And they're respectful. And then they strap you down on the table and they kill you. And they do it to your friends.
I don't know if I'm more afraid of facing the unknown or if I'm more of fear of what's going to happen after I'm gone, Who's going to be really hurt by this?
When I'm executed, all the way up to that time, I get to think about my wife's loss, because she does love me.
For me to think about Heath in that kind of situation, I feel like when I see an execution, I feel like it's my time is next. Next time it's going to be my husband. And it really affects me.
Well, before they kill you, they give you sodium pentothal, which puts you to sleep. And as you go to sleep, I know I'll be afraid, but I hope that it won't happen. If it happened, I knew it would be. But I'm not afraid now. Not afraid of death at all, because it's not near me.
That's a lot of work, and then you think that your husband's going to go, and he may be loaded with heroin or whatever they give him, some kind of drug to make him. You become numb after a while, and then when you see an execution, it unnumbs you, and you start to soften up, and this is what it's really like. Your husband's on death row. He may be executed. Someone else is determining his life, and not only his life, but your life, because if Heath is executed, heaven forbid, I survive, and I'm going to have to live with it.
I think about the process. For example, I shot up all my veins, with the drugs. How are they going to hook the needles to me, my neck?
If we were to find an inmate that had heavy drug use prior to his coming to prison, we've developed a system with the assistance of our anesthesiologist to locate a vein, normally in the leg, in the femoral artery. We do a cut down on the inmate, medical terms that I'm really not, as an engineer, not familiar with. Then hook up an IV into a good vein so that we can assure that the execution is carried out and that the serum does get injected into the victim.
Some of the thoughts I've had concerning, who's going to be there on that last hour, who would I want to be around me. I've discussed this with my family. I don't particularly want a bunch of people there crying. It's not going to be easy on me.
So I would abide by his wishes, even though it goes against mine, because it was his last wishes, and I want him to have what he wants. But it'd be hard to go back home and just wait for the phone to ring or whatever for him to call you up and tell you that he's dead.
Well, the obvious victim that the media talks about is the person that's dead. For a prosecutor, though, the people that you deal with, the true victims, are the surviving family members who carry the grief and the outrage, who are confronted with this incredible criminal process that in their eyes isn't a criminal justice system, but a criminal's justice system. And you get to feel their pain, and as you begin developing your strategies for trial, part of that is getting to know the victim and talking to the victim's family.
You know, they say it's cruel. And I don't know if the prisoners say it's cruel or the prisoner's mother say it's cruel. But if they ever had their son or daughter brutally murdered, or 4 people brutally murdered, shot to death, laying overnight, it's not cruel. What do you think it was when they killed our family? I would say that was pretty cruel, especially if it's premeditated.
What they did to my daughter and what he did to that little 17-year-old was cruel, very cruel. They kind of give them a little kind of a hypo. They go to sleep. It didn't compare to the rape and all the stuff they put my daughter through. I don't think they're thinking about what they did to other people when they say those things. You have to be concerned with the victims, what they went through, not just what those people that are sitting down there saying, well, I need about 7 days to get my things together. Karen didn't have even time to say goodbye. She had no reason to die. So I have no sympathy for murderers.
And yes, you know, maybe they do get 2 or 3 hours notice or a week's notice. I hear that they get a week's notice that they're going to go to the death penalty. But at least they have time to tell their family goodbye. But they should have thought about this before they killed, because they did have that decision. They chose to kill. They chose. They broke the law.
Well, in the Missouri statutes, the person responsible to assure that the sentence is carried out is the chief administrative officer of the institution where the inmate is located. So I am the responsible person for the execution process. In that capacity, I am responsible to oversee the entire operation. When you get into the business of performing an execution, I guess to the average person, the method really doesn't make a lot of difference. The result is the same. But I certainly think that a system like the lethal injection that we use, where if anyone has ever had a major operation, they went through this process. It's an intravenous injection, and of course the difference is that if you're doing that for surgery, of course there's a recovery.
I like to think that I gave it enough thought and that I thought it out and made a rational decision that if that day ever come for me, that I plan to handle it like a man, you know. And that's something else that it's kind of scary, because if you've never dealt with something like that before, how do you know how you're gonna handle it?
It's a part of accepting having the death penalty, dealing with the possibility that that day is coming along when you will be strapped down to a gurney and have a needle pressed into your vein and have poison running into your body, you know.
I don't get in conversation about death penalty and things of that magnitude, because a lot of people just don't know what they're talking about. You got guys talking about if they was on death row, they have to shoot them off the fence and they have to kill them before they can strap them down and on that gurney, or what do you think about this guy they took down there and he broke down and cried? You don't know what you're gonna do until that time comes.
Approximately 48 hours prior to the actual execution procedure, the inmate is taken out of the population for various reasons, his own protection, for our own betterment, etc., and placed in this area here, being the holding cell.
Every time they take a man off and they take him over to there, it has a very big impact. And everybody tries to deal with it in their own way, but a lot of guys that do it by laughter, you know, and they'll try to make jokes concerning about it. It's not funny. None of them feel that it's funny. They just try to ease the tension. It's a way of releasing their pain. It hurts, you know. So we all fear the same thing. We all fear that last day, that last walk, or, you know, what may be waiting for us down the road.
Well, as you know, it's kind of traditional, and I think everyone provides what's been come to be known as the last meal. We allow the inmate to request anything he wants as long as it's within reason and it is available.
I'm kind of flexible, you know. I mean, I like to have, I think I want steak. I know I got to have some shrimp. I know that. And I don't know if I want catfish or steak with shrimp, french fries, strawberry malt, and a lemon meringue pie.
I ain't into that. I can't see past getting a reversal. You know, I can't see myself with a life at 50. You see what I'm saying? I don't look beyond my heart's desire and to give this sick man this stuff back. I don't think about no last day or none of that.
Staff, of course, and everyone, I think, feels the same, but that they are an instrument of the people at that time. The court has decided the individual has certainly had due process and has had an opportunity to review and well, in fact, a lot of people are of the opinion more than ample opportunity to appeal it. And at that point, I think that the execution is completed, and that is the will of the people and the decision of the court. And this institution and myself and the staff are strictly an instrument of that.
Approximately 11:35, the condemned is brought out of the holding cell. He's brought into here and strapped on this gurney right here, just prior to the execution procedure. At approximately 11:45, an IV is placed in the arm, just a continuous drop IV in order to keep the veins open prior to the actual execution itself. Then at approximately 12:01, shortly after midnight, the blinds are all opened. The superintendent, who's in charge of the death sentenced inmates at Potosi Correctional Center, enters this room, the execution room, and reads the execution warrant to the inmate. He is also at that time asked if he has any last-minute statements that he'd like to make. Then the superintendent leaves with that warrant of execution, goes back into the operations room itself. I and the inmate are the only two left in the room at that time. I have visual contact with officers out here and the state witnesses, which will be in these areas, observing the procedure. Just on the other side in front of myself here is the condemned, the inmates, witnesses, if you will, if he so chooses to have any. When all of those things are set, I step to the door and give some form of signal, okay, to the operations room to commence, to start the execution procedure.
We are now in the operations room itself. This is the point at which the command is given to proceed with the execution. From this point, we connect into the execution room through a cable system from the actual operations machine. This is the controller. It has the timers in it. It creates the minute between each injection. It is totally self-sufficient, whereas we mentioned it works off of a 12-volt system, so it's not dependent on any other outside power source. From the time that the individuals activate the machine, it becomes fully automatic. 4 seconds after the station 1 and station 2 buttons are pushed, the start light comes on for the first injection.
At that time, sodium pentothal is the first chemical to be dropped, and as that procedure starts, when the two executioners push the button simultaneously on the machine, the lights light up that the machine is armed, and the chemical is in process of being dropped.
About approximately 4 seconds later, that injection is completed, the green light comes on, and that kicks in another timer. That timer will hold out for about 60 seconds, which starts after that 60 seconds, we start the second injection.
Then the next chemical is Pavulon. Okay, it's the next chemical. Takes about the same time for it to be pass into the inmate's veins.
The other timer inside the machine picks up and holds out for about another minute, and then the last injection starts. 4 seconds after it starts its travel, it usually completes its travel.
And then the last one is potassium chloride. Once again, about 1 minute for it to be into his veins. And at that time, and shortly thereafter, usually within 1 minute, the doctor, sitting adjacent to us right here, will pronounce the inmate dead.
Once the execution again is complete, all of this is secured back into the execution room. Everything is cleaned up and stored and put away, and that's completed the actual carrying out of the execution.
After the inmate, the condemned, has been pronounced dead, we make sure at that point that he is positively identified. We make sure that the condemned witnesses are escorted out of the institution, and we make sure that all the state witnesses sign the execution warrant, which then is returned to the county where the condemned has been sentenced from. And then we call the coroner in and turn the body over to the coroner at that time. And either the family picks the body up or the state, dispose of it at their will.
The appeal process is integral to the way of life on death row, and it is an endless cloud that transcends the inmate's life, sometimes right up to the moment of execution.
It's common knowledge that there are many stays along the way by various courts and the legal system. So when we receive an execution warrant, we assess whether or not, for lack of a better term, we would call that a serious warrant. Once an inmate completes one phase of his appeals and gets ready to move on to the next, if the appeal fails in that phase, execution warrant is issued. In other words, an inmate may receive, between the time he's sentenced and the time he's executed, as many as 6 execution warrants. If it's in the early phases of the appeal process, that execution warrant is really a notice to go to the next appeal.
The appeals process could take around 4 years. The longest I've known it to take is 11 years. And as average is more like 6 or 7. But each case is so different that you have to know a lot about that particular case to know how long it's going to take it to get through the process.
I just got denied last week, so I got one more step to go. And it was kind of disappointing because I thought I was going to get a reversal at that stage, you know. They had my case in court almost 5 years before they ruled on it. And me and my lawyer both thought that with them taking that much time, they were really looking at some things and it was going to benefit me. And it turned around, they denied me all the way around, you know. So like I said, that was kind of disappointing. I hadn't really anticipated getting denied, you know. I kind of had my heart set on getting a reversal, you know. So that kind of knocked me down a little bit. But I'm slowly getting back to where I was. I mean, I got to, because there's some things I got to do in the law library, and they don't allow you much time to feel sorry for yourself, you know. Just got to get back in there and do what has to be done.
Time runs out for a convicted killer on Missouri's death row. Ricky Lee Grubbs died by lethal injection shortly after 9:30
It was the first
this
time
evening.
that one of my clients has been executed. This was the first time I've ever had to call somebody on the phone and tell them that your appeals are over and you're going to be executed in about an hour. Cedric headed down to the prison because it looked like an execution was going to happen that night.
And he had been prepped and prepared and was basically at that point ready for the execution to go on. He was extremely calm. It was as if he was ready for his fate, but he still had faith. And my feelings at the time were, I was probably more scared than I had ever been in my life, going up to the prison and not knowing, in fact, what was going on, because I was out of communication with our St. Louis and Kansas City offices.
And then it was about 8 o'clock that I got a call from Chris Bassel, who is the clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court. And he told me that the court had denied the stay. He also told me that, he would be calling the Attorney General in the prison. So he hadn't yet. I was the first one he called. And I called Ricky. They have a line in the death watch cell. And I told him that the stay was lifted. And Ricky asked, well, what's next? What's the next appeal? And I had to get just real blunt with him and tell him that that was your next appeal. That was it. It's over. He said, well, what about the petition for certiorari? And I told him that, well, that was what this was. That was what it was. And he thought they took a lot longer than that, and they usually do. And so I had to tell him that he probably had about an hour. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. So he said, okay, and I asked him if there was anything that I could do at that point, and he wanted to be left alone so he could visit with his family for just a little bit. And so, I got off the phone so he could do that.
It certainly wasn't the way that I had envisioned things turning out. I was then escorted out of the cell and directly to the witness holding cell, where they separate the witnesses for the state and for the inmate. And I was held there for roughly an hour before the execution was to take place. They have a procedure that is extremely cold and goal-oriented. They lift the blinds. You are viewing a body that is strapped to a gurney. I could see the back of Ricky's head, and I could see the sheet that was covering his body going up and down as he breathed. And then they started the procedure. At that point, they let the shades back down, said it is complete, and immediately ushered me out of the witness room, up through the prison and out of the prison. And that was, in a sense, it. I spoke with the family for a while and immediately left and went back to St. Louis, and don't have much recollection of the drive other than the fact that I just wanted to get away from that situation and decide what I was going to do as far as whether or not I would continue to do this type of work or what I would do. And that, in a sense, is my experience with the last days of the life of Ricky Grubbs.
Just even the atmosphere is different, you know, even the color figurations is different, even the quietness, the stillness, you know. It's like a funeral parlor to me, you know. We in a dead city and it's business as usual for these people.
Whenever this time comes on, they lock down the institution at 6 o'clock because of security. They don't want nothing going on. They don't want to interrupt their little show. To us, it's confusing because it gives you too much time to sit in there and think. I just don't understand why that 7:30 in the morning comes, they pop your door and they let you back out like nothing happened the night before. You know, that's where the men get the feeling that nobody cares.
If you don't know me and I get executed, it's not gonna bother you. Not like it would if it was your son or your nephew or your neighbor. You know, people can tell you that you're intelligent and that you had the potential to do this and the potential to do that. And it's just so much talk. But when you know within you that you got a lot of sense, that you got above average intelligence, that you could have been anything that you wanted to be, and realize those things from this chair, handcuffed, then, you know, it takes a lot out you know, because I could have been just as successful. Well, I'm not successful, not sitting here on death row, but I mean, I could have been successful as anybody else out there had I took the time to get the education and follow the structure that society's dictated that we should follow in order to have a wholesome life. So yeah, I regret that all the time.
Thank you.